I guess we'll talk about it, but I don't see how we're going to do it. I don't. I meant to talk to GK about it, but did you fix and have a seat? Clerks will call the roll.
Glenn Whitney, County Judge.
Here.
Roy C. Brooks, Commissioner Precinct 1.
Present.
Marty Van Ravensway, Commissioner Precinct 2. Gary Fickus, Commissioner Precinct 3.
Say here.
J.D. Johnson,
Present.
Commissioner. J.D. Johnson, Commissioner Precinct 4, constitutes a quorum.
Thank you very much. Our invocation today will be delivered by Pastor Terry Cross from the Life Fellowship Ministry Center in Hurst, Texas. After the invocation, if you'll remain standing, we'll have the pledges. Morning, sir. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Let us bow our heads, please. God of heaven and earth, we come before you today with thankful hearts. We're thankful for life, for health, the opportunity of a new day. We're thankful for your goodness and the privilege of being an American. We come before you today asking for your guidance. You said in your word that the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. And so we pray for wisdom for this court, for all those who are serving here. We pray for all our government leaders in the county, the state, and the nation. Lord, we ask for safety and success for our men and women in military service. And may we all walk in your will as we ask your blessings upon this day and as we ask for your blessings upon all of this Christmas season. And we ask these things in the name of Jesus. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Again, thank you, Pastor Cross, for offering our invocation today. Mr. Manius, agenda announcements.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the Court, we have two announcements for you this morning. Under the Administrator Section, Item A5, this relates to a public hearing and approving of a financing through Splendora Cultural Education Facilities. There's a revised court communication in your red folder this morning. The only changes were we wanted to correct some of the dates that were in the original document. Also, members of the Court, under Human Resources, Item 9I3, this is an approval of an extension of a project employee or employment in the district clerk's office. There's a revised court communication. There's simply a correction on which fund this particular individual will be funded out of. And then finally, members of the court, want to advise you that since this is our last full meeting of the court for this year, we are going to hold a special call meeting on Thursday, September 27th at 10 o'clock in the morning.
December would be a better month.
Would you mind handling this for me, Judge, real quick?
We're going to do it on Wednesday,
No.
Thursday, December 27th at 10 a.m.
For those that haven't gotten that yet, I'll repeat that. That would be on Thursday, December 27th, 2007 at 10 o'clock in the morning here in the Commissioner's courtroom. With that, Your Honor, that's about all I have this morning.
Good thing.
We hope the rest of it goes better.
Yes, we do.
Kind of screwed that. Okay. We have the approval of the minutes for our regular meeting of December the 4th.
Move approval. Second.
A motion and a second for approval. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Next are our proclamations and recognition, and we'll begin with the recognition of the Leadership Development Program participants. And I believe that Larry Wilson and Tina Glenn are going to help with that, so if y'all will come forward and make the presentations and hand out the plaques.
Yes.
Okay.
Michelle Ann Ryan, Juvenile Services.
Larry, I tell you what, hold on just one second.
Sure.
Why don't you talk a little bit about the program? I know it started back in February of 2000, but give a little heads up and an outline of this, and that will allow the folks who may not understand exactly what's going on.
Okay, the Leadership Development Program is a program where the participants in the program have to go through 8 specified classes and choose from a list of 4 elective classes during the year. They also have to do a research project outside their own department and then give a presentation on that project. And this year we've also done some self-assessments and personality profile assessments. And this is the 6th year of the program, and applications are due December 21 for the 2008 program. Okay, thank you.
Now, if you'd like, go ahead and continue.
All right. Charles Anderson, Juvenile Services. Lisa Bates, Public Health. Robert Burnt, Transportation, and Robert is unable to be with us today. James Castillo, Information Technology. Thomas Chenault, there he is. Domestic Relations. Margie Drake, Public Health. Ashley Eubanks, Domestic Relations. Neil Ewing, Purchasing. Donna Fenton, Tax. Citron Glover, Sheriff. Malika Gonzalez, Sheriff. Ed Hadusek, Precinct 3, and Ed is unable to be with us today. Dana Jackson, IT. Make 2 rows, I think. Randall Jones, Juvenile Services. Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones. Sherry Whitley, Tax. And this is the 2007, I almost said 2008, 2007 Leadership Development Program participants. Take it back.
Congratulations, and thank you all again for this and for your efforts and time spent in this process for the last year.
It's so important that we continue this program because it's part of our effort to grow our own team from within. And the more you expose existing employees to new opportunities and new skills, the better off our entire workforce is going to be. So I congratulate each and every one of you.
Our next proclamation is one that we're going to present, find it here, to Garrett Dean Van Ravensway.
And he's not with us today.
He's not.
No. They will be here from California in a couple of weeks, and since we aren't going to be in Commissioner's Court, I appreciate your awarding this to him so that I can tell him that he is now a Texan and no longer a Californian. That was a great disappointment for his father.
Why don't I go ahead and read it into the record just so if he goes back to our video and wants to see it, then he'll be able to do that. Whereas it is our high honor and great privilege to proclaim Mr. Garrett Dean Van Ravensway an honorary citizen of Tarrant County, entitled to all of the rights and privileges thereof, and whereas said proclamation automatically confers upon its holder status as an honorary Texan, now therefore be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, are pleased to congratulate our colleague, Precinct 2 Commissioner Marty Van Ravensway, on the happy occasion of the birth of her 6th grandchild, and at the same time correct the oversight that would otherwise have wrongfully denied Garrett Dean Van Ravensway all of the benefits and blessings of Texas citizenship. And be it therefore resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, extend congratulations to Garrett Dean Van Ravensway, his parents Robert Lynn and Victoria Van Ravensway, and the rest of his family on the occasion of his birth, December 29, 2005, in San Diego, California, in witness whereof we have heretofore set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 11th day of December 2007. And I'll move its approval.
Second.
And I'll second it too.
All those, please vote. And the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much for doing that. Now all my grandchildren are Texans, as they should be.
You're an outstanding grandmother, Marty, because it's going to be critical to the future development of that child, not to be a Californian.
Absolutely.
Okay, next, Commissioner Brooks, I believe you have a proclamation.
It's for ratification only. I move approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. The motion passes unanimously. And then finally, Commissioner Fickus.
Yeah, I'm going to have you read this, Judge, but this is to Whataburger. We've been very fortunate in this area in that Whataburger is celebrating their 50th year with a fundraising project for the Westside Lions Club for the holiday basketball tournament. This tournament has provided great sport and great entertainment for teams for many, many years, for 50 years, all over the country. And they come to this area and have a tournament, and it's just a great thing for Whataburger. It's a great thing for the community, and it really provides an outlet for our student athletes to be involved. I think we have Rick Whitehurst, is that correct? Mr. Whitehurst, would you like to come up to here? Glenn, would you please read that?
Whereas since its inception in 1957 as a fundraising project for the Westside Lions Club, the Whataburger Holiday Basketball Tournament has become the premier event of non-professional basketball players in the Southwest. And whereas players from high schools throughout the region and nation come together during the holiday season to test their mettle against their peers and showcase their abilities on the court. And whereas nationally ranked teams from as far away as Alaska have participated in this event. And whereas this tournament has achieved the status as one of the 5 top high school tournaments in the nation, according to Sports Illustrated and USA Today, where college coaches come to evaluate and recruit student athletes. Now, therefore, we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby recognize the Whataburger Holiday Basketball Tournament on the occasion of its 50th anniversary for its commitment to providing the guidance and opportunity for our youth to become responsible citizens through athletics. In witness whereof, we have heretofore set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this 11th day of December 2007.
Thank you.
Commissioner Fickus moves, and we have a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. The motion passes unanimously. Thank you all. Any comments that you'd like to make?
Thank you very much. This basketball tournament is very special to a whole lot of student athletes in this city, in this county, in the surrounding counties, and it has been, as you said, for 50 years. I think it would be interesting. You probably will find that no matter where you go, somebody knows about this. We have T-shirts. We provide Whataburger basketball tournament T-shirts for the kids that play in the tournament. And a while back, I was walking through the airport in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, and here comes 3 Whataburger basketball T-shirts on it. So, thank you all very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Board members, before you, you have the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second for approval of the consent agenda. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. We have 2 public hearings today. The first one is to consider placement of no parking signs on Bison Court in Precinct 3. Ms. Lamb, welcome.
Thank you, Judge. I'm here today to request that Commissioners Court consider the placement of no parking signs on Bison Court. This street is located in Precinct 3, across from an elementary school, and the citizens in the neighborhood have asked for this no parking. It will be it will be restricted to school times.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak to this matter? None appearing, I'll close the public hearing, and court members, open it to any discussion or items that you may have. You want to
Make a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the placement of no parking signs on Bison Court. Any further discussion? Please vote. The motion passes unanimously. The next public hearing will be to consider the placement of no parking signs on Country Dale Road, Precinct 4.
Yes, sir. Once again, this is in response to a request from citizens in the neighborhood. They're requesting no parking signs on Country Dale, and county engineer has evaluated the situation. We do recommend.
This is a public hearing. Is there anyone present who wishes to make any comment regarding this public hearing? None appearing, I'll close the public hearing and
Move approval.
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. I missed you last week when we got to discuss the LSU victory.
I really hated not being here.
Yeah, I can tell. Mr. Beecham represented you well.
I was sure he did.
Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, on item number 1 under the administrator's section, we're requesting that the court approve an order prohibiting outside burning for a period of 90 days or from the date of the action of the court or until it is repealed by the court. This is simply a burning ban because of the dryness that we've had, and winds are.
It's not me laughing, Mr. Manius. I'll be glad to join in a minute, but do you really?
And
where's
Randy is.
Come on up, Bubba.
Randy probably left the room about 5 minutes ago.
No, he's still here. He didn't get out in time.
And as I was going to say, as it is our tradition, we tend to try to pass these the day that it rains, and we're right on schedule.
The best rain dance we've got so far.
Come along and do your thing.
Randy, when these this booklet was prepared, or our agenda was prepared, it was rather dry, but now that it has been raining for about, off and on for about 3 or 4 days, do you really feel that strongly about this?
Yes, sir. We tried to say in the court communique that the reason we're asking for this burn ban is because this time of year, we always enter into the winter season when the vegetation is dead. It creates a fire hazard there because of not having any life in it. Also, the fronts that we see coming in and out produce some strong winds to cause us to have grass fires. We've talked to the Forest Service about this. We've had them up a couple of times during the last 3 weeks. They've looked at it. They think we're on schedule for this request that we have today.
You know, I'm gonna be real honest with you. In the last session of the legislature, we fought the fireworks folks pretty hard, and we were able to, I think, get the legislature to go along with us because they felt like we were pretty genuine about what we were doing. I think, just myself personally, I have a real problem with us doing something here that is going to, in effect, if I'm not mistaken, this will, in effect, stop them from being able to sell fireworks.
No, sir. The first request on the agenda is for a ban on outside burning, and that deals with your.
Yeah, but we're going to get to the second one in just a minute. And
true. And let me say again, this ban that we're asking the court to approve is different from the type of situations we run into in May, June, and July when we're in a severe drought, when we've had no rain, when the vegetation that's normally supposed to be green in that time frame is dry, and it causes a fire hazard. This is different. We come to the court pretty much every year about this time because of the winter dead grass, the brush, the trees, the leaves, creating a fire hazard. This has nothing to do with fireworks.
We're going to have another court meeting, I believe.
I think it's going to be Thursday, December 27th at 10 a.m.
27th. I would suggest that maybe we postpone any action on this and give us until then to find out what the weather situation really is. But it looks like we're a little premature since what has happened has happened.
Do I hear any objections or comments to that? We're going to delay that particular.
I will tell you that by delaying the outside burning ban, that if in fact if the court has any desire to not have rockets that will be sold and discharged in the unincorporated area, that action has to happen by December 15th, according to state law.
Well, we're not to that item yet, are we?
So we're just talking about burning ban right now.
I think you're going to find one follows the second, but I don't. Is there anything that links them specifically? Probably not.
No, sir.
Okay.
If I'm allowed, asking for the burn ban when we did, we've been talking with the Forest Service for a month on when a good time to do this. We didn't place it on the agenda today solely because we could do the next item, the restricted fireworks. We did it because we felt the timing was right. 2 weeks ago in the southwest end of the county, we lost 150 acres from an outdoor burn that got away. The ban on outdoor burning is important to to us and to our citizens as far as that's concerned. The fireworks legislation or the request on the fireworks has a time on it as of we have to do it by December the 15th, but it's also another tool that we have that the state allows us to have to help prevent fires. And it only restricts rockets on sticks and missiles on fins.
So what we'll do.
That almost rhymes. There's almost a,
Sorry, I didn't write
let
that.
me ask a question
You're
on the,
correct.
let me ask a question about the next item, because maybe that affects it. On the next item, can I not issue that band without court's approval, or do I have to have court's approval in order to do that?
Court's approval.
Thought there was an emergency situation.
Well, the second item that we're asking about on certain restricted fireworks is tied to legislation. If we do what we did back in 2005, 2006, as far as ban everything, you can do an executive order to do that. It's separate from this. This is on.
Well, I'm confused.
Let's do
Let's
this.
try this again. Let's back up here.
Let me make a suggestion, okay? Let us pull this down for right now, and we will talk with legal. We didn't realize there were going to be various questions about this. We'll bring it back this afternoon on it. That way you'll have a better idea as to the authority of the county judge versus the authority of the Commissioner's Court. I will tell you that the authority to limit the type of fireworks is a Commissioner's Court authority, but the declaration issue, it may very well be a county judge. So let us just pull this down for right now, and we'll bring it back to you this afternoon. Is that acceptable with you?
Is that okay with the rest? Yes. Okay, fine.
Thank you. Thank you. Very good. Your Honor, members of the court, a week ago to item number 3, we're requesting that the Commissioner's Court cast its 570 votes for the Tarrant Appraisal District Board of Directors election. You might recall that you all have previously nominated 5 individuals, Deon Bagsby, John Clanton, John Eubanks, Harold Patterson, and Joe Potoff. There was one additional person that was also nominated, not by this court though, was John Molinoff. You have 570 votes that you can cast, and you can cast them either for one individual or you can distribute those votes if you care to.
I move that we cast all 570 votes for Deon Bagsby.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. For discussion purposes, I have to say that, John Henry is someone who, Mr. Clanton, John Clanton, is someone who I have originally proposed for that board and who is a good friend of mine and someone who I've talked with and who called me personally and asked me to continue to support him on that board. So I would like to at least see that some of the votes go for him, purely from a standpoint that, well, I made a statement as to why I would like to do that.
We nominated, I guess, was it 5?
Yes. Well, I say we nominated 5.
I guess under the sense of equality and doing equally sharing, that we would equally share all those votes and divide, I guess there's about 6 to vote for. But, or at least use the 5 that we nominated and divide our votes between them, which would be 100 and something votes. I don't really understand why we would give one person all the votes.
Do we have
That doesn't
Rick,
make sense.
let me explain my reasoning. I nominated Deon Bagsby in the first place because it was my feeling that it was time to bring some ethnic and gender diversity to that board. Now, the only way we're going to be able to do that is to vote our votes in a block. So I'm asking you to do that. You don't have to honor my request. You can do whatever you want to do. But my motion is to cast all 570 votes for Dion Bagsby.
Well, I too feel an obligation. We nominated 5 people. I think we ought to vote for the 5 we nominated.
Do we know what the vote count is on you?
Currently, Joe
Why
Pa.
does it matter? Let me ask, why does that even matter?
Well, because I'm sensitive to what Commissioner Brooks is saying, and to the extent that certain of the people who we've nominated have already gotten all the votes they need to be elected, then I don't necessarily want to just, in effect, cast votes for someone who doesn't need it. I'd rather the votes be.
How do we know that?
Well, that's what I ask. I don't know that we do, but in years past, he has been able to give us votes that have been cast. And we had a pretty good idea of who was going to need and how many votes they were going to need to get elected. We may not have that this year.
I do have that information. The way we find that information out is all the votes are public record. And so there have been jurisdictions that have already voted, and their votes have been made public. And so we have those numbers. That's how we have that. It's nothing sleight of hand or anything. It's just simply, scrubbing the public records on them. I do have those votes. Your Honor, Joe Potoff has 802 votes.
Wait a minute.
Yes, sir.
802?
Yes, sir. Harold Patterson has 782 votes. Mr. Molinoff has 663 votes. Mr. Eubanks has 878 votes. Mr. Clanton has 537 votes. And Ms. Bagsby has 282 votes.
Are there still folks out there to vote? Or have most of the votes come in?
The vast majority of the votes are in.
I heard from most of these people, this is an election, and these people, a lot of them make phone calls, talk to different people about supporting them, because they wanted to be on this board. And I heard from almost all these people, but I didn't hear a word from Ms. Baxter. So, I think it's indicative of the vote count that you've just given us, that there were a number of people that went out and solicited votes, and some of them didn't. Maybe I don't understand how the system works, but
It could be indicative of the fact that white men vote for white men.
I don't want to get into that. It's not a race or a gender deal. It's the ones that have the experience, and these people have been there a long time. They have experience.
I think 16 years as a county commissioner gives one the experience to sit on the appraisal district board.
Okay, we have a motion and a second before.
I have a motion on a second. I call the question.
Okay. Is there one ready to vote?
well, I'm not sure what the.
We got a question, so we need to go ahead and vote. So let's everybody vote at this time.
Nope, I'm not ready to vote. But I will be.
Motion fails 3-2. Okay, do we have any other motions?
I'll make a motion that we distribute our 570 votes to the 5 people that we nominated on Commissioner's Court.
A second then.
Who did refresh our memory as to exactly who we nominated?
Our nominees were Ms. Bagsby, Mr. Clanton, Mr. Eubanks, Mr. Patterson, and Mr. Potoff.
So the one of the 6 that we did not recommend was Mullinax?
Molinoff, yes.
Mullinoff, excuse me.
Where is he from?
Fort Worth appears as though.
Just a second, though. I have that information. Fort Worth ISD. He was his nominee. They were the nominee.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Please vote. And that motion fails 3-2. It appears to me as though Mr. Eubanks and Mr. Potoff and Mr. Patterson have the votes that they need. I would suggest and would make a motion to the extent that we split the votes between the two who are at this point not yet sure as to how they're going to do it. So I would move that we give 285 votes to Mr. Clanton and 285 votes to Ms. Bagsby. I'll make that in the form of a motion. And it sounds like that one's going to...
Well, do we have a motion?
We have a motion, we don't have a second. So that motion dies for a lack of a second. Anybody else? Three of us have tried it.
Come on, Gary. I wasn't here for the original vote.
Well, I work pretty hard at talking to people for John Eubanks, and I just certainly feel an obligation that I vote some votes for John Eubanks. I'd hate to just not give him anything. But I went out and sent letters out to different councils and talked to mayors and school board members.
John, I do need to raise an issue, and that is on Joe Potoff. While we say that he has 802 votes, the City of Fort Worth is scheduled to vote on his today, and staff in their court communication, or their council and manager communication, are recommending that that they vote all of their votes for Potoff. But that vote is not.
How many votes do they have?
647.
Who's that?
Joe Potoff. So really, at this point in time, Potoff has,
1,400.
no, he really has less than that, because that's in the 802, right?
I think it's unfortunate that we have the count from these others. I think we ought to cast our votes the way we feel they should be cast, and not on who's got how many votes right now.
Well, I'll make a motion that we award, out of our votes, we award 100 votes for John Eubanks, and divide the remainder between Ms. Bagsby and who was the other one? Clanton, yeah.
So that would be 100 for Mr. Eubanks, 235 for Mr. Clanton, and 235 for Ms. Bagsby. And that is a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. The motion passes 3-2. And maybe in the future, I mean, Commissioner Johnson, I understand what you're saying. Maybe in the future, we just make the decision that we don't want to know what the votes are. Previously, we have.
So it's unfortunate that those vote counts have to be given out prior to everybody sending their votes in.
As I said, Commissioner, the only reason we pull them for you every year or every other year, and since it's a public record, we do have that information for you.
And the administrator didn't give them out until he was asked.
Yep.
Well, it's not our administration. I'm just wondering about the tax appraisal district. Is there no statute or anything that?
He didn't actually get them from the appraisal district. He actually got them from the.
They were public votes, just like we took, but they were taken earlier, and we monitor those votes.
All right. Makes it pretty easy to fix an election, though, doesn't it?
Yes, sir. Your Honor, we could go to item number 4.
Please.
We're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve a legislative policy statement concerning ex-offender registration and recidivism reduction as recommended by our office. Let me tell you a little bit about this. This simply reconfirms a prior action of the Commissioners Court. We've been working on this project for a long time. It's a very successful project. It is something that we believe is critically needed. Since we're going into the interim charges of the legislature, though, we would like to have a reiteration of this policy statement with the 5 current members of the Commissioners Court named signed to it. Staff is recommending approval.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Your Honor, members of the court, on item number 5, we're requesting that the court approve a resolution relating to a public hearing and financing for the Splendora Cultural Education Facilities Finance Corp. For the benefit of Legal Aid of Northwest Texas. This is something that would allow funding for that particular project, which is located in downtown Fort Worth. There is a hub policy statement that they have signed. Commissioner Brooks' staff is recommending approval.
Please explain the project.
The project in and of itself would assist in renovating and constructing a 20,000 square foot 3-story office building, which is located on the southeast corner of East Weatherford Street and Pecan Street.
They're going to renovate the existing facility.
That's our understanding. Yes, it's to improve that particular facility.
Move approval.
No second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Your Honor, members of the court, on item number 6, we're requesting that the court approve a resolution relating to the issuance of tax-exempt Series 2007 incremental draw revenue bonds by the Tarrant County Cultural Education Facilities Finance Corp. For the Fort Worth Museum of Science and History project in an amount not to exceed $65 million.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
You have the hub statement.
Yes, sir, we do.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Reich, do you want to bring your matter up now, or do you want to?
I think Mr. Curry is going to bring the first matter up. Item number 2 is going to be held until after closed, and item number 3, Mr. Sugar. Want you down real quick?
Sure.
Okay.
What we doing on 1?
Waiting for Mr. Curry to come out.
Okay.
I don't know. Mr. Curry's going to speak on the organized crime narcotics unit. I'm just requesting that the Commissioners Court approve this is the 3rd year of our interlocal agreement with the City of Dallas for the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, and it's $10,000 of grant funds.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Curry, come on down.
Good morning.
Morning, sir.
Good morning.
Welcome back,
Thank you.
Commissioner. To refresh your memory, during the regular budget period, we told you that the narcotics task force unit that we've had for some 20 years might not be refunded. It's been working on grants all these years. Well, it wasn't. At that time, you all put $600,000 in an unallocated fund in the event it wasn't funded. Then we had a little misunderstanding about our figures, I think, and several weeks ago I got with the county judge and GK, and I think Debbie was involved, and we shuffled some stuff around, let some people go. We were holding back some positions in our office that we hadn't filled, and we've got it down to where we can fund this thing for that $600,000, and that's the bottom line as far as it affects this court. And I'd like to ask you this morning to transfer that amount of money over to the narcotics enforcement team, and then Judge Whitley, I think, has got a plan to try to raise some money from the various cities involved in this thing, and we don't know, of course, what that's going to do, but he's committed to trying it. But the bottom line is we'd like to have the $600,000 so we can continue this program. I've got a lot of faith in it. Those folks have done a good job, and I think we need them.
Was that $600,000 included in this year's budget?
It was included in undesignated until we heard the final word on the grant.
I'll move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. The one thing I did indicate, and I've in fact already have talked with one of the police chiefs on the cities that are involved in the program about the willingness to maybe leave the forfeiture money in there to cover these expenses, and then to the extent that we were to go through the program and have money left over, then it could be divided out or just left in there to fund it into the future. And this particular chief was very, he felt like that was a good way to go. The indication was, and this was the gentleman from the city of Hearst, and although he's not talked with his counsel, so they may have a different thought, but at least from his perspective, it was not enough money to be concerned with as far as bringing back over into the city's budget. And he felt, too, that it was a very valuable program, and really felt like that, that was a good solution to leaving the forfeiture money in there instead of the city's portions going out.
You need to sell the chief of police in these cities on that plan, but I think it would be real well if us on this court and Tim, you could get out here with some of these cities in some of their meetings and sort of explain to them what the program is doing and how it's going to benefit them, and what our request is, that we'd like for them to use those forfeiture funds. And I think that we can sell that if we'll all work together and move forward on it.
I've got no problem with that, and I think in our area of influence, we can have some influence on the police chiefs. I think it's going to take you folks to talk to the mayors and the city council, but we can.
Well, I just want to see us holding hands in doing this.
Sure.
And what y'all can do with the police chiefs is excellent, and we definitely want them on our side. But I'd like to see us all then move forward to visit with these councils, because they're the ones that's going to make the ultimate decision.
And I think that's great. And if each one of y'all could talk with the council, another thought that you might want to consider would be at the mayor's council meeting early in January or February, that we come as collectively together as a group and discuss this with the representatives there. That would certainly take care of.
And I think we mentioned this to Alan Levy when he was over here during the budget process too.
Yeah, we did. We talked about the possibility of.
He's scared to come back.
Yeah.
But I think that's a great idea, and maybe Patricia, if you could talk with each one of the commissioners, and we could maybe look at the possibility of doing that. That might save us a lot of individual meetings. But then again, you think about it, and if the individual meetings are what's best for us, we do it that way.
Yeah, and there's really not that many cities right now participating in this, are there? Out of all of our 40.
And that may be a twofold type, and think about this too. those cities that are participating, if we could get them to agree to leave the forfeiture money in, that in and of itself would cover most of our expenses. You probably have 20 cities that are not participating in any way, shape, or form, and while they're not of a size that they could probably afford to dedicate any kind of personnel to it, they might be able to give, $2,500 or $5,000 or some amount of money that would help cover some of the out-of-pocket expenses that, cash expenses that we're actually.
Because we're touching all the cities, regardless whether they participate or not.
Yeah, you need to keep in mind that this program's not directed at Fort Worth or Arlington. This is directed at these small cities that cannot afford to have their own narcotics enforcement, and they're the ones that get the big benefit out of it. And we, the larger cities in the county, are kind of paying the load on the thing.
And I truly believe if we can focus on this in the first quarter, that'll be before anybody starts putting their budgets together. If you can have your folks talking with the chief of police, and if we can be talking with the city council, then we can get with the city managers and be sure that it gets, figured into the budget when we get into the process.
We'll certainly do our part.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Please vote. The motion passes unanimously.
On a personal note, before I leave, Judge, I appreciate your help, and as always, when I get in trouble, GK ends up bailing me out, and I appreciate that. Hope all of you have a good holiday season. Thank you.
You too.
I appreciate you.
Okay. You just thought you'd get up here before we could call it, and we'd go ahead and have all the stuff done.
Well, if you want to go ahead and just do a mass approval of items 1, 2, and 3, you can do that.
No, we don't want to do that.
Okay. Our first item is...
You may need to bring that microphone down. I'm not sure I can see you for the... I see you have your Arkansas colors on today, too.
I move to receive and file personnel agenda.
We have a
Thank
motion
you.
and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. The motion passes unanimously.
Our second...
Note that Commissioner Fickus is not here now.
Our second item is to request approval of the expanded shift differential implementation of the new plan. You might remember during the budgetary process, you all voted to expand the shift differential program. We currently pay only for employees in the non-exempt employees in the Confinement Bureau, and the Courtesy Patrol Division. We have, you all voted to expand that to all of the Sheriff's Department non-exempt employees, juvenile services, medical examiner, pretrial facilities, and information technology for those non-exempt full-time employees that work the second and third shift. We have defined the second and third shift as in shifts that begin between the hours of 1 p.m. and 1 a.m. This would be a 65-cent an hour shift differential. We do have to begin this program at the beginning of a pay period, and while y'all had voted for it to be effective January 1st, the closest beginning pay period is December the 29th, so we are requesting that you approve it effective on that day.
And we have budgeted the dollars to do
Yes, sir, that was previously budgeted.
December the 29th?
Yes, sir.
We have a motion and a second and a frown upon our budget officer's face, but I'm assuming that that's just because
she wasn't for it.
No.
Not at all. Commissioner. The funds also for this pending final approval were included in undesignated. Once it's been approved, then we'll distribute it to the affected department.
Thank you. Any further discussion or comments? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Again, Commissioner Fickus is absent at this time.
Our final item is a request for approval of an extension of a project employment for the district clerk's office. You do have a revised communication for this one. This individual's 2-year limit will expire on January 6th, and they would like to continue with this employee to work through the rest of this project. The cost to the Records Preservation Fund is a little over $25,000.
This is part of the imaging cleanup.
Yeah, it's one of 4 employees. The request originally, I think, was for 10, but we gave them 4, and this is one of the 4 that's been there a couple of years, but time has expired.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Robin. Public Health, Ms. Brewer.
Public Health has one item for your approval. This is a professional services contract with Diagnostic Health Corporation to provide radiology services for the Tarrant County Public Health Department's HIV/AIDS preventive medicine clinic.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Beecham.
Your Honor, the members of the court, we have 4 items for your consideration this morning. Our first item is a bid award recommendation for bid number 2008-025. This is our annual contract for the purchase and installation of 3 and 4,000 gallon water tank bodies. Recommendation would be to award on a per enterprise basis. Awarding is our primary vendor, Nice Equipment, as our secondary vendor, Smith Tank.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Item number 2 is a bid award recommendation for bid number 2008-008. This is our annual contract for Tarrant County Government Record Service requirements. Recommendation would be to award a per enterprise basis, selecting as our primary vendor Texas Towing, as our secondary vendor ABC Record Service, as our alternate Cornish Record Service.
Move approval.
The second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion?
Is this making changes from what we have now?
Last year, we had both consent and non-consent tows on the bid. Our prices actually went down this year. We're waiting. This particular bid is for Tarrant County Government Record Service requirements only, which would be consent tows. We are waiting to hear from the City of Fort Worth. There's a strong possibility that we will be able to utilize their rotation contract, which is already in place, for non-consent tows, which was the big concern last year. We should hear within a couple of days. Been working on it for the last couple of weeks.
Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our third item is a bid award recommendation for bid number 2008-014. This is the purchase of furniture for the Southeast Sub Courthouse. That recommendation is to award on a per enterprise basis, selecting the 5 vendors as shown in your court communique.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our last item is a bid award recommendation for bid number 2008-015. This is a bid for the purchase of dispatch console furniture for the Sheriff's Department communication area. That recommendation will be to award to the third low bidder, Watson Dispatch, the amount of $102,328.50. Bids received from Americon and IBEX should be rejected for not being specifications.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
On a personal note, remember Santa's colors are red and white, his team colors.
Are
there any appointments today?
Yes, I have one if I can get a copy of it, because
Liz
I
Allen.
apparently took all mine to the office or gave them to GK, but I want to appoint Liz Allen to the Historical Society, a vacancy that I have in Precinct 4.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to appoint Liz Allen to the Historical Commission. Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Any other appointments? Okay. The next is the claims. You have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
Second.
So motion is second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Manius, briefing items.
Your Honor, members of the court, we do have a work session that we're scheduling after closed. We believe that should start about 12:30. That work session is going to deal with subjects similar to what's on the briefing. It'll be concerning the medical examiner's expansion project. So that'll start at about 12:30. But we have no other briefing items for you this morning.
We have one audience participation this morning. Mr. Paul Knight, I believe, is here. Mr. Knight, if you'd come forward and give your name and address, then we'll welcome your comments.
Good morning.
Morning.
My name is Paul Knight. I live at 2107 Rustling Elm Street in Burleson, Texas. That is in Tarrant County, though. I'm here to address the court on a problem I'm having with an installed aerobic septic system surrounding my property by a owner of the property that it's installed on, and the system is a Mr. Billy Page. This system since 2003 has continuously given me problems from smells spraying into my property, on my property, even onto my home. I have went to Tarrant County and David Jefferson Health Department several times with this and have complained and complained about it, even up to just as current as 2 days before Thanksgiving. I am trying to get the state involved in that, and now for them, they have told me to get them involved, I have to come address y'all and get copies of the minutes of the records. So that is all I'm here for today.
Okay, we appreciate your comments. We cannot respond because it was not an item. It will be listed in our minutes. And what I would ask that you do is to communicate with Mr. Manius immediately after this meeting. And if there is a necessity to come back, or if there is anything else we can do, he'll discuss that with you. And if there's a necessity, or you feel a necessity to come back and have an opportunity for us to respond, then you need to ask Mr. Manius to put that on the agenda, and we can do that. But this will show, and he'll explain that to you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you for your time. Merry Christmas to all.
You too.
Thank you, sir. If there is no other business at this time, then the Commissioners Court will recess the open session and proceed to closed session to discuss items exempted under sections 551, .071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code.
Jeez.
And to request the issuance of a check in the amount of $198,400 payable to the Tarrant County Clerk, which of course will be deposited in the registry of the court for payment out to the foundation. And we're requesting the amount come from Fund 261, and request the county auditor to pay this amount immediately without the necessity of the amount first appear on the claims register for approval by this court.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion to second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Your Honor, we could go back to the administrator section. It was my understanding that as it relates to the prohibition against outside burning, that we wanted to hold that until December 27th. Is that correct?
I believe
all of it.
Yep.
Okay. We do want to bring up item number 2, yet this is the declaration of a disaster order and an order prohibiting certain fireworks in the unincorporated areas of Tarrant County. If the court decides to take any action as it relates to the banning of certain fireworks, that you will need to do that today. If we don't do that today, well then, by state law, then we'll just pass on that.
And this just bans rockets with fins.
That's correct.
And missiles with something.
This
Rocket
fire-
on a stick,
this is the
missiles
firework.
with fins.
Is that correct? Rockets on the
Sky rockets with sticks and missiles with fins.
And is that, okay, so one of you guys tell me, is that a huge part of the fireworks sales? Is that the most important thing they do, or Is that a little bitty part, or why do we care?
Only fireworks I use as triggers. I don't know.
You and Grisham been firing together?
Okay.
I move approval of the ban of rockets with sticks and missiles with fins.
And I'll second that one.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Please vote. It looks to me like the motion's going to pass, 4-1.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, now if we could move into the work session part of the agenda. As you recall, previously we have had a work session as it relates to the medical examiner's office and its expansion. You've asked us to go back and look at certain items and then come forward with another work session and some recommendations. Mr. Phillips is here to address the court this time.
Put this over here on your extra space.
Good afternoon.
I'm done.
That's your opinion.
As Mr. Mayor said, this is workshop number 2. I want to make sure that you're aware we did involve in the process between October 10th and today. We involved all the stakeholders, the University of North Texas Health Science Center, the St. Joseph's property owner, and the representatives, the architects HDR, and of course Dr. Parawan. Our agenda today, I want to tell you what's changed since October 10th. Also, we're going to discuss the capital budgets and some site drawings. And we'll get some, we've asked Dr. Scott Ransom to be here to give his comments on our findings. And also, there's representatives from the St. Joseph's project here to give you a presentation, a real nifty presentation. And also,
let me just say on behalf of Bruce Stern, who owns the St. Joseph property and who is very orthodox in his Judaic beliefs, he felt it was more important for him to be at home to light the final Hanukkah candle with his 7 children, than to be here with us. So he's represented by his architectural team, and I'm sure that he made the right decision.
yes. Here's what we've done. On October 10th, we presented 3 projects to you. The approximate square footage with that was about 91,000 square feet. You asked us to go back and revisit the project, and we've done that. And we have reduced the building square feet requirement down from 91,000 to 61,095. And how did we do that? Well, we've removed some space. We removed a biohazard morgue. We removed some of the expansion space from the project. We've also left some labs in the existing building, toxicology, firearms, breath alcohol, to stay in the existing building, along with the administrative offices and other areas. There will be no renovations in the existing building in this project. We also were able to reduce about 7,300 square feet of our labs request through using a second shift for lab and morgue staff in the future, starting probably in 2015 or 2016. At that point, when the need arises for the workload arises in such a manner that we require additional staff, we'll look at making these a second shift staff, using the same equipment or maybe some additional equipment if we can fit it in. In front of you on your desk, there are a couple of Excel spreadsheets. One is the University of North Texas Health Science Center spreadsheet. It's the brown one. The other is the existing site spreadsheet. It's the orange one. That's the first 2 you have there. The University of North Texas Health Science Center base project is $34 million. That $34 million does include the appraisal value of the existing medical examiner's office should we sell it, and that's $2.25 million. Is what it appraised at. So we did credit this project that amount of money. Both the projects have, again, 61,095 square feet. They both, let me say, are apples to apples regarding the square footage, no biohazard morgue or special autopsy rooms, and also, of course, the Health Science Center includes the sale of the existing property. Do you have any questions on the budget at this?
So just be sure I'm understanding what the existing program, the 26,428, is what our number is, having taken into consideration these things up here?
Yes, that is the orange one is the existing site, and that takes into consideration using, which is the next slide, I believe, using the parking across the street. It would need to be improved. So both projects provide parking. The University of North Texas Health Science Center project is free parking by the college. The parking for the existing site, we will need to build some parking spaces across the street in the base project. Now, one of the alternates will be a parking structure, which I will get to in just a second.
Where would the parking be at UNTHSC?
It will be adjacent, Commissioner. There's some adjacent parking structures right next to the site where the building would be. Carter Burgess will be able to address and show you on a photo. Here are some of the alternates, options. There is a sheet, let me call it my Luby's Cafeteria sheet, because you kind of get to pick and choose what you want. And basically it has the capital budget for the Brown, which is the top row, which is the University of North Texas Health Science Center site, and the lower row is the existing site. If we'll spend a minute on the top row, which is the Brown, it shows you the base Brown project at $34,097,000. That's the base project of 61,095 square feet.
Does the 34,097 compare to the 26,428? Is that
Yeah.
the?
Yes, those are the base projects.
On both of them?
On both of them, yes, sir. Now, when you start looking at options and alternates, you can kind of go down as far as the Brown. We'll start with the shell floor. The shell floor addition is about $2 million. And that's the same amount on both projects. Something new, Commissioner's Court, is an autopsy room. And maybe possibly in lieu of a full-blown biohazard morgue, Dr. Perawani and staff have come up with an option, maybe using what they call an autopsy suite, which is a different autopsy room with some tables and some various fixtures that has separate air systems and electrical systems and such from the main morgue, something they could use in case they had some biohazard type customers. But it would be kind of just a smaller room and not a full-blown biohazard morgue.
And that takes their price from 26,428,106 to 29,057,554.
With a shell floor, it would. It takes it. What it would do.
With the autopsy room.
No. With the autopsy room by itself at the existing site would be the second row where it says orange and autopsy room.
Yeah.
It would take it to
29,057.
Where do you see that number?
It would be 27,052.
Oh.
It just adds 624,302 to it.
No, that's not quite how I got there. I'm not
Yeah,
sure
the
how.
other one is the shell floor.
Oh, you're saying on that, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, individually, if they're individually taken, we do it first that way, if it's okay. And go individually if you just pick one alternate and not all. Let's stay on the existing site. The base project, $26,428,000. If we just did the autopsy room, it would increase at $624,000 and go to $27,052,000. If we just took the biohazard morgue by itself, it would go to $33,877,000. We did just a shell floor in the base bid, it would be $28,433,000. And if we did it with a garage, which is a structure on the JPS property, it would be $30 million, approximately. Now, if we want to add on top and do two things, two alternates along with a base bid, for example, Commissioner Brooks discussed the $29 million. $29,057,000 would get us an autopsy room and a shell floor.
What was the amount of our bond issue?
$26.5 million.
26 what?
26.5, 26,500,000.
And you could add to that, if you'd like, approximately a little bit over $1 million in interest earnings that we've earned on that money so far.
So that could buy us an autopsy room.
Do the suite, yeah, the autopsy.
If nothing else goes over budget.
Well, there's contingency in that 26.5.
Yes.
Keep on trucking.
Yes, let's talk about the parking just a little bit on this slide. The University of North Texas Health Science Center, that if we add $2 million, we can get about 56 more spaces. 56 spaces built into the project. Now, that's in addition to the spaces that are around that are coming free. That would be actually built into the structure. If we did 2 levels of parking, like we discussed back on October 10th, that would be an additional 70, which would be a total of 126 spaces for about $4 million. Now, regarding the existing site, if we were to build a garage on the JPS property, it would cost about $3.6 million, and that would be about 390 spaces. That would, we would have to give up to build the garage, would be 140 something, plus we would net out an extra 50 or 60 spaces if we did that, and that's giving JPS the spaces they need back that they lost. So. Now I'd like to bring up Chuck Nixon, who will discuss the site drawings, and then at that point we will bring up Dr. Scott Ransom, then go into presentation on the St. Joseph's property.
Good afternoon. Chuck Nixon with Jacobs Carter Burgess. What I'm going to do is graphically go through with you both sites that David has just explained and what those options are. So either you can look at the screen in front of you, or you can look at the larger screen up here. The first photo you're seeing is the University of North Texas Health Science Center, and this photo was taken looking due south. So this is 7th Street, the Cultural District over here, and the actual site for this project would have been right here on this parking lot, which is adjacent to their clinical and patient care building. And this would be 7th Street right here, just to get you oriented. And another view of that, looking due west, again, here's the site. This would be 7th Street over here, and the rest of the campus development. That site, by the way, has a fairly steep slope on it from the higher ground by the building down to Clifton Street, which is along here. To give you a quick overview of a site plan, this is now looking north, but here would be Camp Bowie down here, and 7th is up here. This is Clifton Street I mentioned earlier. Here's a large parking garage, parking structure that exists, and it comes across the street over on this side. The new building would be constructed on this site, and we would have a general morgue accompanying that building. The morgue wants to be a one-story structure for a variety of reasons, including equipment and natural daylight that could be brought into that morgue. So that would be the actual location to develop that site piece of property, and the parking would be furnished by the university either through this parking garage or other adjacent sites close to it. This gives you a section through the actual site itself. There's the patient care building I mentioned earlier. Because of that slope, you see that dashed line right here, we had shown actually excavating into the hill, putting some of the functions down below that don't need outside awareness, windows. The morgue would be down on the lower level where it would have access to the street. And then we have shown the optional floor that could have been built up here that relates exactly back to the existing site, which you'll see in a moment. So you see how we zoned this in terms of labs and offices, et cetera. Please stop me anywhere along here if you have a question. Now let's go to the existing site where Dr. Periwani and his staff are now. Again, this is looking south. Here is JPS Hospital, and these are the 2 office buildings, medical office buildings here, their existing parking lot. Dr. Periwani's existing operation is here, as well as in these 2 buildings. piece of property we talk about acquiring and going across the street to park on is over here. That's what it looks like today. I'll show you just an opposite view looking north. Again, the existing operation with some parking in front of it, and then all of this parking back here.
All of that parking is related to the medical examiner's building now?
No, ma'am. It is related to these office buildings and to other operations for JPS. So, again, looking north, just like that photo was, here's the existing building, small parking in front. Our new structure would be in this location. We will have a connector building. I'll show you a larger view of that in a moment, but a connector building which includes a new drop-off area here and expanded coolers. So the new part of this project is what I'm outlining here right there. And then here's the optional parking garage that David spoke of, should you decide to go that way. Or here's the property across the street providing the parking over here. Now let's go to a more detailed view of the building itself. Again, the existing building, which we would not touch in this project in terms of renovation. There would be an improvement to his cooler situation, enlarged cooler here. We would have a morgue receiving new structure in this location. David mentioned the special autopsy rooms. We would put them in this location, adjacent to the receiving. And then we have this connector, small connector building going to the new building, which at this point in the basic financial sheets that David gave you is a 2-story building. But it could be enlarged to a 3-story building by shelling in a floor above, and he's giving you those numbers. Any questions on any of that? Okay.
Hi, I'm Scott Ransom, and it's my pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. First, I'd like to compliment G.K. Manius, David, Chuck Nixon, and others at Carter Burgess for the openness of the process and the willingness to listen to our suggestions during the study period. I believe our past discussions have provided both a very productive and professional opportunity to discuss the various options in developing this future. We at the Health Science Center have reviewed the existing site proposals and accept it as close to an apples to apples comparison as possible for the capital necessary for the construction. And we also recognize that primarily due to the new construction at the Health Science Center site, that our proposal is roughly $7.5 million more than the existing site. One financial issue that's not appreciated in the capital proposals is related to the very likely higher operational cost to maintain an older building when compared to a newer building. And while extra maintenance and utility costs are likely in the older building, these are not costs that are appreciated in this capital proposal, nor should they have been necessarily appreciated. Now, as all of you know, I've attempted to show the value to our county, to the city, to the community for greater and more effective partnerships with various existing entities in Tarrant County with the Health Science Center. We have attempted to develop various partnerships with the Health Science Center with various hospitals, pharmaceutical companies, the Public Health Department, the city, the county, all for the mutual benefit of our county as well as the Health Science Center. And as you also know, the Health Science Center competes and is compared with other medical schools across the country and Texas. Most other health science centers have developed significant and great mutually beneficial relationships with these various entities, which has created value to the communities as well as great economic benefit to the community. Last year, we engaged an independent consultant to assess the economic impact of the Health Science Center in Tarrant County, and we learned that there was roughly $480 million impact to Tarrant County in 2005. And given our rather significant increase of over 25% last year in our revenues, we expect that that's somewhere in the order of $600 to $650 million to Tarrant County just this past year. We also believe that more effective partnership results in greater financial impact to our community through being more competitive for federal, state, and private funding. We also believe that partnership will provide us to be much more competitive in the national and the local playing field compared to other health science centers across the state and in Texas. And just to kind of give an example, I was in New Orleans yesterday and learned that the city and county are considering support to the LSU Medical School of around $1 billion. Also in Waco County, the Waco community is supporting higher education infrastructure for public funds. I know when I was in Ann Arbor and Washtenaw County through the years has supported the University of Michigan to the tunes of hundreds of millions of dollars of support. And clearly across the country, countless other communities see the value of a strong health science center and medical school, and they see the potential impact of these public funds to be able to support the development of a great health science center that does provide a great economic engine to the community, as well as potential benefits to health of their communities. In considering the medical examiner location, I believe there's several other considerations that should be considered in the co-location of the medical examiner at the Health Science Center. First, there is a potential for shared staff and joint faculty appointments and funding. By providing UNT faculty appointments and salaries to the medical examiner, we have the opportunity for greater collaboration in partnership in teaching, in research, and also in various service missions. These faculty appointments and our existing services, such as the library, various laboratories for research, and others, provide a great foundation for growth and partnership. Also, UNT and Denton and the Health Science Center are ready to move forward with a more comprehensive Institute on Forensic Medicine that provide a great opportunity to create something world-class here in Tarrant County. By combining the resources of the medical examiner with the Health Science Center's Human Identification Lab, the Forensic Medicine degree program, along with the UNT Forensic Anthropology and Forensic Chemistry programs, we would have the critical mass to compete on the national stage for this new and up-and-coming area of medicine and healthcare. And by combining the forces of these various entities in active partnership, we can create something very special and unique in Tarrant County that will improve the lives and certainly the economic prosperity in our community. Also, second, joint research projects will likely support increased federal, state, and private funding. You know, the Health Science Center already received $28 million last year in research funding. We're expecting that to significantly go up this year. That includes significant funding for the Human Identification Lab. We believe by active partnership between the medical examiner, the UNT programs, and also the Health Science Center, we can be very competitive on the national field for more grants, resulting in a greater tax base and a more robust community. Also, increased opportunity for outside contracts from the Department of Justice and the FBI and other communities is very likely. We already have support from the federal government thanks to the hard work of Kay Granger and others. By having a comprehensive group focused on forensics, we will be more competitive for more federal appropriated dollars that will be great for the community and also in economic prosperity. The opportunity for private funding for joint programs and services such as Human Identification Laboratory and nationally recognized forensic-related degree programs in forensic genetics, forensic anthropology, forensic medicine, forensic chemistry, and others will provide a great opportunity to raise private money to support buildings, programs, and other initiatives here in Tarrant County. And to be competitive for national, state, and private funding, Tarrant County must learn to effectively partner, something that's been a challenge for many years. As you all know, Tarrant County has some of the worst health outcomes in the country. We have three of the worst zip codes in the country for infant mortality, and we have a great opportunity to improve the health of and economic welfare of our county through partnership. And I think this is just one example of how a partnership could work. For the Health Science Center and Fort Worth Medical School to be competitive on the state and national stage, we must partner effectively with other hospitals, with public health department, with businesses, as well as our local county and city governments, as well as others. Other communities strongly support their Health Science Center and medical school. For us to be competitive, we must join together for this mutual benefit. The building of the new medical examiner's office is truly a historic opportunity that will impact generations to come. We can demonstrate to the world that Tarrant County wants a world-class health science center and medical school in their community. We can create something special for future generations through this partnership. We can create greater economic engine for Tarrant County through these various entities and research and other sources of revenues I mentioned before. We can create new knowledge and train students for our mutual benefit to make sure that we're training providers of the future. And really the question before us and before the court is to support the status quo in a new building or develop a possibility for a brighter future for both the Health Science Center and the medical examiner. Well, I want to thank the Commissioners Court for the opportunity to present my perspectives this afternoon. As I mentioned in my inaugural speech last month, we have a world of possibilities to create a world-class health science center in Tarrant County. I believe we can create this world-class health science center and medical school while creating a world-class medical examiner's office here in Tarrant County by a great and historic partnership. And thank you, and I'd be very happy to entertain any questions.
Any questions, court members?
Thank you all.
We would like to switch slides right now and move on to the St. Joseph's project. Back there, hopefully I'll introduce Richard Martinez and Kurt Parday with HDR Architects out of Dallas. They're representing the St. Joseph's property, and they'll spend the next 10-15 minutes giving you an overview of the property and their proposed plan.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, Judge, Commission members. My name is Richard Martinez. I'm a principal with HDR, Architects and Engineers. We're a national architecture firm, but we have offices all over the country, including one in downtown Fort Worth. I'm here on behalf of my client. As Commissioner Brooks mentioned, Bruce Stern had to be home with his family today. He sends his regrets. Diversified Capital is the name of his company. We have worked for him for the last 4 or 5 years. He owns a number of projects in the Metroplex. This is a project that he brought to me about 4 years ago. And he said, Richard, I'd like you to come over and do an evaluation of this piece of property. It's an old St. Joseph's Hospital. And my evaluation, first of all, had to deal with what it would cost to make that facility operational from a functional standpoint, and also to sort of identify particular uses that might be conducive for that location. And one of the first things we came up with was the idea of a crime lab and a forensic facility for the medical examiner. And this was about 4 years ago that idea came up. At that time, I met with Ron Singer, and I also met with Dr. Pirwani. I also brought our national forensics director with us to discuss what their needs were on the building. At that time, we became aware of your plans to do what you're doing right now. So that's a little bit of the genesis. Mr. Stern purchased an option on the property, and we moved forward. And what we're going to present to you is this concept that we had that started about 4 years ago. Let's see. Again, the property we're talking about is the old St. Joseph's old St. Joseph's Hospital. And particularly what we're talking about is, let me go down to the next slide here, is the project that would be for this particular use. I'd like to orient you first on the property for those of you that aren't familiar. One of the first things I'd like to point out is where Dr. Pirwani's and Ron Singer's office currently exists. It exists right here. That's the medical examiner's office location right now. Okay. Right there. And of course, JPS Healthcare System is right here. The old St. Joseph's Hospital is located right there. So you get a sense of what's happening there. This is the proposed location that we spent some time talking with Dr. Pirwani and Ron Singer about. Now, the portion of rather than offer up the whole complex, and Mr. Stern is willing to do that as well, he has offered to allow a separate purchase of a portion of the campus, and that would be essentially the existing 1981 tower. And again, this is a complex that's been added to over the years, and also portions of the existing cafeteria area and conference center area right here, also including the old laundry facility. And again, I'll move forward to orient you. The medical examiner and crime lab portion would be in the 5-story portion right here. And then the autopsy suite would be located on this level right here, which includes the morgue. And then one of the options that you have, the alternative, talks about the biohazard morgue, and that would be located in this location right here. What you're seeing here is the upper level of the parking garage that's existing. All right, here's another view of the same complex. Again, first of all, here's the parking garage. The good news is that's an existing parking garage. It's functional. It also has a heliport on top that's functional. So there's no cost, obviously, in building a new parking facility for it. The designated area for the autopsy suites, again, would be in here where there's high bays, and Dr. Pirwani, that would allow ceiling heights in excess of 14 feet for that particular location. Also, there is an existing loading dock area on that level, which allows you to have the vehicle examination bays located, again, in an existing space. This simply highlights those two portions of the complex as well. Again, 1981 Tower would be the main facility. The autopsy suite would be on this lower level, and there's the existing parking garage. Now, this is a little three-dimensional model we put together for Bruce to sort of talk about how the whole complex is tied together. Again, the patient tower is essentially this portion right here. This is the 1981 tower that we would turn over to Tarrant County if they decided to move their facility there. And, of course, these are different levels within the building. This is the opposite view of it, so you get a sense of where we are. Again, this is the existing laundry building that would become the biohazard morgue if you took that option.
Your
Yes, sir.
proposal is to, go back to one of those previous slides, is to sell the
81 tower. Right.
That little building
Right.
to the side.
This building right here, and then a portion of this building, depending on how much you take.
And the parking garage.
And the parking garage, we would designate the lower level would be given to you for lease in perpetuity as long as you own the property.
The lower level.
The lower level.
How many spaces? is
There's a
that?
total of 500 spaces in there. We've designated about 150 spaces in the lower level, about half of the lower level floor, a little over half.
That's just lanyard that you just throw that in.
Right, it's thrown in as part of the deal, no cost to the owner. And as I mentioned before, on the lower level and the first level, it's actually a very contiguous space. All those buildings are connected, and the little yellow areas are the elevator banks that are in the building. We'll be turning over a portion of this lower level, what we call the basement level, to become part of the complex. As you move up on the ground floor, what we call the ground floor, this again would become the portion that would be the autopsy area, and then this is sitting on top of the 81 tower, which is basically as you move up to the next floor. That's when you begin seeing the footprint of the 1981 tower. Essentially, there's about 15,000 square feet on each one of those floors. And I'll just go up through the 5 levels here. Again, the area in lime would be the area that we would be giving over to Tarrant County.
So there's 5 levels?
There's 5 levels.
Of 15,000 each.
Yes, sir.
And then go back to, I'm asking you to go back, but
Okay.
keep going back. Keep going. Go through all those levels all the way down.
Okay.
2, 3, 4.
Ground, and then the basement, or
Okay,
lower
now the
level.
ground and the back, let's stop right there.
Yes, sir.
What of that would be, are you giving over to our use, or are you giving any of that over to our use?
We are giving over a portion of it to your use. Actually, Bruce said you could have the whole thing if you wanted it, but part of the transaction involves a purchase of property. And if you let me go to the floor plans, Judge, I'll show you which portions we're giving over on each
Okay.
level.
Okay.
If you want to look through it. Okay, let's go through these again very quickly. Now, one of the things that we were given was the program that your other consultants have developed for you. And obviously, with an existing building, you have to sort of evaluate the program of spaces, and we have to look at the adjacencies. Since it's not built on all one level, we had to look at to make sure that we had the correct adjacencies in terms of how we locate particular functions within the building. We have not had the benefit of sitting down with Dr. Pirwani and Ron Singer and going over this information personally. So obviously, we've made some assumptions based on how we think the building would function just from our previous experience. But again, I would defer to Ron Singer and Dr. Pirwani to truly analyze the program and see if these functions are correct in terms. But in terms of our approach to it, we have taken all the functional space that you have in your program and the designated square footages and applied them to this building. On the ground level, we would have, again, this is pretty much what you had, and so I won't belabor this. I'll do it on the next slides. But what we've done is we've designated those particular functions on each level of the facility. Let me move forward here. For instance, on what I call the site itself, I'm showing you a site plan here. This is an actual construction document. Again, here's where the parking garage is located. And this is the portion of that existing complex that we would be turning over to you. Now, I've also shown you one thing. This is a section through the building, through the 1981 tower. One of the issues that David Phillips and his team, when they went over and reviewed the building, is it had to do with the floor-to-floor height in the existing building. And the existing building has a floor-to-floor height of about 11 feet. When we build brand new crime labs, we traditionally have higher ceilings than that. Usually we start at usually around 10 feet. There are a lot of existing crime labs that have 8-foot ceilings. But it does present some design challenges that we have to overcome. For instance, how do we take care of mechanical systems? How do we take care of venting? And it's the assumption that you have to be able to live with the 8-foot ceiling height. Now, again, there's lots of economies of scale in reusing this existing building, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But that's one thing that Dr. Pirwani and Ron Singer would have to feel comfortable with, because we can't change the concrete structure of the building, obviously, not without tremendous cost. So that's a true issue, and it's one that should be dealt with. Okay. Now, to go back to your question, Judge, on the lower level, which is the basement level, these are the portions of the building that we would be turning over for the use. I mentioned the vehicle inspection bay. That's this area right here, which is where the existing loading dock is. We're going to have one elevator that's designated as the evidence elevator. In order to preserve the chain of evidence, you will have the only use of that elevator. It'll be a designated area totally under your control. Evidence storage and receiving would then be coming into here. The firearms and tool marks area would be here in the basement level. The new morgue elevator would be located right here. And this is essentially forensic support areas down on what I call the basement level. Now, we have also, one of the options is the biohazard morgue. And as we indicated, this is the building we're planning to locate that if you decide to take that option. That's the existing laundry building. Again, it's an existing structure that is approximately the correct size for your use.
How high are the ceilings in that area?
I want to say they're probably not quite 14 feet, a little less than that, maybe about 13.5, something like that. Yes, ma'am.
On the evidence receiving and storage,
Yes, right there.
is that the full 5 levels?
Yes, as a matter of fact, as we go up the floors, you'll see that evidence elevator goes through the entire 5 levels. So again, whether it's bringing bodies in or vehicles in, everything kind of ties back to this particular space right there. Okay. Now this is the ground floor, what I call the ground floor, the main level of the building. And here's how that particular function begins to break out. Your program called for training classroom break room area. That would be this area right here in the 81 tower. Again, evidence service section. Ms. Van Ravensway, you see there's the evidence elevator again. Right there. This would be the evidence service section. The evidence lobby would be right there. The autopsy suite is essentially in this area right here, which includes the base morgue, not the biohazard morgue, but the base morgue, and the support areas for the autopsy suite. And then one of the other options that we did is if you decided not to locate the morgue in the laundry building, you could expand theoretically into the building at this location right here, which we said future morgue expansion. So that's another option. The costs are pretty much the same, but it's another option, or it could be future expansion.
And the ceiling height in there?
It's very tall, very tall. It's gosh, I don't know what it is, Kurt. It's about 10 feet. Yeah, 10 feet plus in that area right there. Okay. Now, as we start moving up through the 81 tower, you begin to see how we're breaking out the spaces. Again, this is the second level, which is the true, now we're up above the rest of the complex. And we've got the forensic death investigation area identified here. The forensic lab and administration is here. Again, evidence receiving and storage with the dedicated elevator. And the medical examiner administration is on this floor. Now, one of the issues I talked about earlier was mechanical systems. The actual mechanical room for the 81 tower is located here in the building. It's got louvers that are on the outside of the facility right here, so that's how they have their fresh air intake for the mechanical systems, for the air handlers. We would plan to use the same room and same location. All the ductwork as it comes from here, it comes and feeds into this facility. So again, although it has a low ceiling height, the infrastructure is in place to do that. We would have to replace the air handlers. There are some unique requirements for the laboratory areas that I'll talk about a little bit later, but that's how we would functionally deal with that particular issue. As we move up to the third floor, we would have, again, there is some unassigned space that we have here. And I might start out right at the very beginning here talking about square footages. Both of your concepts that you've had both on the UNT campus and the existing building has a total of about 61,000 square feet in here. We are actually giving you about 70,000 plus square feet, and it just has to do with the configuration of the building and how we're designating areas. But I think we'll show that we're giving you more square feet for less amount of money. Again, it's just the economies and inefficiencies of the building space itself. So there are some places, like for instance on this, that are unassigned future lab expansion, and it works well in that particular area. Again, the mechanical room is identified on each level. That's it right there. Toxicology, chemistry laboratory administration is on that level. Forensic photodigital is right there, and latent prints lab is here. Now, these little ins and outs are actually features in the building, if you remember the exterior shot of it. And, of course, there are windows around the perimeter of all the buildings as you move forward and upward. The fourth level will become the toxicology laboratory, which is located in this portion right here. The intoxilizer section is here. Evidence receiving storage again on each level. Again, the mechanical room, the forensic chemistry laboratories here. You've noticed I've sort of shown these little dark areas around the perimeter. One of the challenges, again, with the lower ceiling height is making sure you have proper venting for the laboratory space areas. And what we would do is plan to create a plenum space around the perimeter of the building to allow all of the venting to go up to the upper levels in that way. So that way you don't have ducts penetrating through the middle of the space. On the fifth floor, the top floor, would be the trace evidence laboratory located on the north side of the building. Again, evidence receiving, mechanical, forensic biology laboratories, just some office spaces here, and again, the perimeter chase locations for the venting for the mechanical systems. Now, I have taken the information that David and Chuck gave us on the other two concepts. I believe you have a $34 million base budget on the UNT Health Science Center campus, which includes a credit for the sale of the existing building. You've got a $26 million program to get you back into your budget with some of the items being alternates under that concept. We've done an analysis of what it would cost to give you apples to apples for the same program of requirements, and it's at $25.6 million. So roughly about $1 million less. Okay, what does that involve? Let's go on to the next one here. I also did an analysis of Kurt and our project management team came in and took a look at your options, your alternates, and in some cases we've simply used the same number you have because we don't have sufficient information to know whether that number is one that we could change or not at this particular stage. The special autopsy rooms, again, at $600,000. The shelled expansion space is the first thing that you see a real difference here. Obviously, you have to build a building. In both cases, you have to build it even though you're not finishing it out. In our case, all we're taking is a designated area within the existing building and doing some cleaning of it and preparing it, and it's essentially a shelled space that we would be doing. And we estimated about $250,000 to do that particular portion of it, which again is about a tenth of the cost it would be as opposed to building a brand new structure.
Have you already pulled any asbestos or any issues like that?
The 81 Tower does not have any asbestos in it. There are portions of asbestos in the other complex, but not in the part that we would be turning over to you. The part we would turn over to you would be free of asbestos. Okay. Now, the biohazard morgue, again, is another area where we think there'll be some real savings. Again, you're building a brand new building for that particular function. We actually did get our forensic folks involved. We showed them the building. We took a look at your performance specification, and we believe we can build that square footage for about $4.5 million in that existing building. So there is some savings there as well. The parking garage obviously is the big saver right there. You're not building any parking. The parking's existing. Bruce is willing to commit at least 150 spaces to you at no charge as part of this deal. Obviously, the whole concept involves a transaction involving the sale of the property, which we've also rolled into the total cost. So the sale of the property is rolled into this cost, that portion that you would be receiving. So there's zero cost for the parking garage. Bruce wanted me to point out three things, which I will do now at this time. The biggest thing that we think is the good thing about this concept, and it's similar to your existing concepts of expanding your existing location, it's the location of the facility. It's essentially, it would keep Ron Singer and Dr. Pirwani in the same location. A lot of their clientele comes from St. Joseph's Complex there, right across the JPS Hospital. It would keep them in the same location. We think it's a preferred location for them without having to move. Obviously, the second thing is no downtime. Under the existing scheme where you're adding to your existing campus, there's going to be an awful lot of construction going on while you're expanding that facility. So it involves both Ron Singer and Dr. Pirwani having to make some accommodations for that. Of course, that advantage goes away if you build a brand new building on the UNT campus. But here, we would essentially do all of the construction prior to you moving into it. Dr. Pirwani could close the door in his office on a Friday and walk into his new office on a Monday this way. And the third thing is that...
Yeah, that's going to happen.
Yeah. That sounds pretty easy, doesn't it? Yeah, I'm sure it would take a little bit longer than that, getting all the furniture, fixtures, and equipment running, but essentially it would not be having to deal with the noise and construction going on in his particular building. And then overall, cost of the project is less expensive other than the other options for growth. And there are a number of financial scenarios that Bruce wanted me to share with you if you want to discuss that.
Before you get to that, let
Yes,
me
sir.
add a fourth item there.
Okay.
And that is that this would have the advantage of breathing new life into a space that has been a dead space in that community for a decade or more. It's an attempt, it's an opportunity to adaptively reuse a building and to create some economic development in a community that pretty badly needs it.
Mm-hmm. Well, Bruce, you know, when we talked about this particular function moving into that building, Bruce sees some synergies there. Once Tarrant County essentially becomes an anchor tenant in that particular development, it will change his entire marketing strategy on how he approaches developing the rest of the property. And again, Bruce has done this all over the DFW Metroplex area. We've done this for him in other buildings around where he goes into an area. He likes to buy properties that are distressed, and he takes advantage of tax increment financing or federal financing that might be available for that particular area, urban development. He applies that money to the development, and he creates new new centers for development. We're doing this in a number of places around the country for him. And he sees that as, once you become the anchor tenant, he could do that. He would love to keep you as a tenant for other areas in the building, and he sees some potential there as well as he develops the other portion. So, any questions at this time? I think that's the end of my particular
And
presentation.
you did indicate you have not really had a chance to sit down with Dr. Pirwani and his staff to go over any of these.
No, in terms of how we've laid out the floors, the adjacencies, we have not been given that opportunity to do that. We would love to be able to do that and discuss this more. I know right now Ron and Dr. Pirwani would say, well, Richard, we'd rather have this here and this there, but there's plenty of room to make those changes.
Has there been, was there also some other areas for storage or stuff like that we had talked about?
Yes. In essence, Bruce said you could have as much of the basement area as you want. It's essentially sort of a non-functional space for him. If you don't have access to the loading dock and some of those other areas, you could have more than that square footage. That's negotiable.
What's the ceiling down there?
Oh, it's pretty low. 11 foot floor to floor, so about 8 foot clear if you had a suspended ceiling in there. So it's about 8 feet. And there's...
And this is all, all this, the numbers you put up there reflect us buying the facility and
Right.
not any lease or anything along that timeline.
No.
So the business of whether we use the basement or not, you're saying that we can use it, not necessarily, to some extent, either we're going to buy that part of it or we're not going to buy that
Yeah,
part.
the area I showed on what the basement level is, you're buying that portion of it.
Okay.
If you want more than that, it's essentially a non-functional space for Bruce, and he'd be more than happy to give you what you need for future storage if you need.
Parking, are we buying that?
No, he retains ownership of the parking garage. You are simply getting
150 spaces, the use of 150 spaces for as long as we're there.
right, as long as you're there. Once you buy it, you will always have at least 150 spaces, and you could have more if you wanted.
What Commissioner Brooks brought up about, bringing vitality back to the area with this particular facility. What do you propose to do with the old facility?
Well, the other portions of the complex, and if I could go back to an earlier slide, let me go maybe to this one here, if I can. I'm going the wrong direction here. Here we go. Yeah, let's go to that slide right there. Again, this is really not one building, but the original St. Joseph's Hospital has been added to from the 20s on, right, Commissioner Brooks? Each one of these new additions created a larger and larger complex. This existing tower, inpatient tower here, one of the things that Bruce, we actually had met with the University of North Texas Health Science Center. We know that a number of their students do some rotation over at the JPS healthcare facility. We actually did a focus group with them, and we asked them a particular set of questions. If you had a chance to actually live close to JPS Hospital while you're doing your internship there and work within the hospital, would that be something you would be interested in? And they answered yes. And we said, what would be the price points for you? So one of the concepts is to create a sort of a medical residential area for students and faculty that want to have a place to sleep close by at a relatively. So that's one of the options that he dealt with right there. There's also been other options for retail in the establishment. It would be essentially some dining, Starbucks, things like that, to be located, again, for the healthcare community in that particular region. And that would be located along this front right in here, the old 1920s tower. It would actually have some storefront businesses located in it. It would have Compi Center, Business Center, things like that. And depending on whether you located your biohazard laboratory here or here, one of the other things is potential for a conference center right here. We also met with JPS healthcare people, and we talked to them about if we develop this complex, is there any opportunity to lease you some space? As you know, they're building a new patient tower right across the street from us, which would be just south of Bruce's development right here. That's where the new hospital is going in by JPS, and also they have a medical office building right there. They've done an analysis of some of the functions going into the medical office building in particular, and it's a very expensive building with some high-priced real estate that's going in there, and there's what they call Tier 2 functions within JPS Hospital itself that they would probably relocate into this development.
Back office stuff.
Yeah, back office stuff. In other words, in JPS right now, they have a lot of administrative functions that are taking up valuable floor space in an inpatient tower.
So in effect, right now, you haven't definitely decided what's going into any of the rest of the facilities. You somewhat needed an anchor to go in there.
Yeah, we needed an anchor tenant, someone that was willing to commit to a long-term relationship in that particular location because it drives our marketing on that particular project.
But in effect, we wouldn't be a tenant, we'd be an owner of our building, but that would probably indicate that we might be there a little bit longer than a tenant might.
Yeah, if you actually buy that, it's like buying a condo. You're buying one of the towers, so you're a resident, I guess a neighbor, so to speak.
What about the heating and air conditioning and all? Is that all tied together?
Originally it was. They're actually, right here is an existing central plant. We did an analysis. By the way, I haven't mentioned Thomas S. Burns. Thomas S. Burns is actually our construction manager on this project. HDR is providing the architecture and engineering component. Every time we come up with these concepts with the developer, he asks us to do a test fit and a cost analysis. Thomas S. Burns has been our construction manager. They go in and assess that. One of the first things we did is we took the existing central plan and we asked Thomas S. Burns, what is it going to take to make that central plan operational? We figured it would be in excess of $3 million. So the decision was to not go back that direction. So what we'll do is if we develop each portion of it, it'll have its own standalone mechanical systems. So the 81 tower would have its own standalone mechanical system.
That's included in the price
Yes, sir.
that you're quoting to us?
Yes, sir.
You
Yes,
will
sir.
do that
Yes.
turnkey for us?
Yes, sir.
Now, did your numbers include the same sale proceeds from the old medical examiners?
It did.
Okay.
Yeah, it's plugged into them. We gave ourselves a credit of $2 million.
2.250.
Yes, sir. And Kurtz, who is actually the project manager for our company that worked with Thomas S. Burns, we have a more comprehensive cost estimate if you'd like copies of that. I don't know that they have that, do they, Kurt? No. But we can share that information with you if you want to.
Other questions?
Well, I'm still trying to figure out how we're going to get a guarantee for 150 parking spaces. Are you going to
It'll be a
blood or something for us, or what?
Yeah.
I would assume that there'd be some sort of a
Blood's
contract that
available.
would say we have the right for that piece, for those parking spots for as long as we own that space and occupy that space.
Right, that's correct. Mr. Stern,
It's the entire lower level of the garage.
No, it's part of it.
it's about 2/3 of the lower level, Commissioner Brooks. We did retain one portion. Actually, that portion is what we're going to call it public parking on the parking garage, and it would be not only for your use, but for other people that come to that development. As we let me go to this slide again. The parking garage is essentially right in here, and what happens is as this part of the building becomes functional, people are going to need to park, so they would be parking on this first bank on the lower level here. That would be sort of public parking for people that need to park on that facility. And you would have, in essence, 2/3 of the ground floor, which would be tied to the lease. Mr. Stern actually offered 3 scenarios to the Commissioner's Court. The first was to sell you only the 81 tower and give you the indefinite lease for the 150 spaces. The second thing was to offer you the sale of the entire property as an option if you wanted it. And the third option was that he actually does the designing and building for you and turns it over to you at that price. So those were 3 options he was willing to entertain.
May I ask a question? Trying to get an idea of how the contract would work. The numbers you produced here are design-build concept, is that right?
It's actually, no, it's a similar concept, and Chuck and I were talking about this the last meeting we had with GK and David. We assume that you have a designer on board and you bring in a construction manager at risk, because that's the design scenario that you've laid out in your other cost estimates. So Bruce would essentially bring on Thomas S. Burns as the construction manager at risk. So it would be delivered that way. It's CM at risk project delivery. Architect separate, client separate, CM at risk works directly for Tarrant.
But if we decided we wanted to just buy the structures from you, there's a price that's associated with the purchase of the structure.
Yes, it's I don't know the exact number, 4.3 million? Yes. 4.3 million.
And then from there, we could go forward and decide and do whatever we want.
Whatever you
What
want.
you've done is you've tried to put together the same estimates that everybody else has done.
Right.
To come up with the numbers that they've come up with, and your numbers are 25, again, without having had any opportunity to talk with Dr. Pirwani and the medical examiner's office.
Correct, Judge.
Okay.
So it's $4.3 million for the purchase of the buildings that you would be doing the work. It's $5.3 million to buy the entire property. Or
Yeah, but that's, when you say the entire property, you mean those towers and everything?
everything.
King's X.
Yeah. Yeah, Bruce didn't think you'd want more than that, so, but it's an option.
I don't want to be developing patient towers or condos or whatever we want to.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so, but.
Any other questions?
I do think this is something we ought to consider seriously.
So if, at this point in time, we know we're not meeting again until, for all intents and purposes, for a full meeting until January the 8th. Is there time between now and January the 8th that you could have an opportunity, to get with Dr. Pirwani and his folks and David and give them an opportunity to scrutinize those numbers and see if they feel like they're in the ballpark with the process?
Again, I think the PowerPoint that we showed you here today, although it was posted last week, I know that Ron and Dr. Pirwani haven't had a chance to do an in-depth analysis of it, so they would have to have some time to do that.
It seems to me like I recall out in my office, Dr. Pirwani, 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, meeting with the owner of this property.
Right.
Was you in that meeting?
Yes, sir, I was.
But do you have any comments you'd like to make? Because I was thinking that you had some problems with part of this, and if you could come before the court where we could see you.
Commissioner, I in fact went over to the old building and had a walk through.
Could you step up to the mic,
Yes, yes.
please?
Commissioner, first of all, the location is something that is somewhat desirable for us. We would be in a hospital district and pretty close to the other hospitals, so that's a plus side. We did have a walkthrough, as a matter of fact, and our concern is really the circulation, the layout of the labs, the ceiling height, very, very important for us. It's 11 foot right now, and if we drop the ceiling down, it's going to be 8-foot ceiling, which is it's a problem for us. We haven't had a chance to visit what Richard has presented today in any great depth, so I think that requires us to look at more carefully. But my initial thoughts are that is an issue for us. The other problem is that the laundry building ceiling is pretty low for a morgue. We'll have to talk about that. And when we walked through, our feeling was that we'll have to gut the entire building and start all over again, build a brand new morgue, and therefore the cost would be higher. Is that what we came up with the morgue?
Cost?
Yes, the laundry building. That's the proposal, that the laundry building would be a morgue.
Yes, it is. I'll address the cost.
Yeah. So initially, I mean, just that's what I feel about that location. But certainly it's something that we do need to consider, and it is an area that we would prefer to be honest, within the hospital district environment.
Just for my edification, Doctor, what are ideal ceiling heights for your operation?
Well, we think that the morgue area should certainly be much higher, so that when we are in a working environment with contagious diseases and aerosol and blood, that the air is not suspended at the working heights. We prefer to be 14 feet and more so that we stay healthy. So that's certainly a concern. And that's true for the labs also. I mean, 8 foot is pretty low ceiling for working in a lab environment.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
The current morgue is 14 feet 4 inches, and the lab is 13 feet 8 inches in the existing building. If you'll allow me, I did some physical plant due diligence on St. Joseph. I'll just give you a copy of it. Commissioners Court, I have inspected the property, and the next step actually would be to perform a full schematic design, which is a component Judge Whitley was talking about, getting the spaces correct, and a design development phase, which is just one phase short of construction documents, and a professional cost estimate by a construction manager, all which would cost about $500,000 to do. And I'm recommending that because of my experience with buildings. All buildings have personalities, and all buildings accept change different. And I'm concerned about this building accepting a change from a patient tower to a specialized lab and morgue facility. And it would take that level of design and effort from designers and engineers, architects, for staff to feel comfortable converting this building from a patient tower to medical examiner's facility. And we would need to go forward with that type of effort. And at that point, we would have a set of design development documents we could involve a construction manager with throughout the process, and they could help us flush out the bugs in the weeds, because right now there are a few of them in that particular building. And Richard addressed also the central plant. We do have to now make it a air conditioning onto itself and other things like that. So for me to feel comfortable and recommend we could go forward with the project at the same level I did the other two, we would need to, somebody would spend about $500,000 going through the design effort to get us to that point and bring us a full detailed construction cost estimate for that project. And I talked with Richard Martinez about this also with Carter Burgess, and they feel the same way. I told them my concerns, my risk averseness, I guess, and they felt this is what we need to do. The next steps would be to come back and ask the Commissioners Court to make a decision on the space program elements and the site. Now, given that would be either the University of North Texas Health Science Center site, the existing site, or tell us to move forward with the schematic design and design development cost estimate for the St. Joseph site. Now, at that point, we could also interview architectural engineering firms, which we do have the submittals for. We're ready for you to interview those firms. And also, we do have the submittals in for the construction management firms who would like to do this project. So they're ready to go. We would like to do that in January, if possible. And then we would select those particular design consultants and construction managers and move forward with design. And we would like to do all that in January, if possible.
I think that's a good plan from that standpoint as far as the timeline goes. And so we'll expect to hear some more from you sometime in the time frame of January.
Yes, I think the 8th or the 15th, we hopefully would get with GK and schedule the interviews. We can come back on the 8th, and you could give us more, if you'd like to discuss more about St. Joseph's, we can certainly move forward there. I have talked with Bruce Stern about it. I don't know if he's ready to go and spend $500,000. I know he spent some dollars to pay HDR to get us to the point that they got us today and did a great job. Now we're looking at a significant effort to go forward with that.
He has, it sounds like HDR and Thomas S. Byrne on board already to some extent. I might at least like for them to have an opportunity to sit down with Dr. Pirwani and hear his concerns and hear his thoughts. And then maybe, I don't know at that point whether we get any kind of a, again, we talk about in terms of a guaranteed maximum price. You don't have a guaranteed maximum price on anything we've got on here right now, from the 26 to the 34 to the 25. But at least, if Pirwani, Dr. Pirwani will have an opportunity to sit down with them a little bit and just hear what they have to say, then.
Okay.
I think that's the way to proceed. If Dr. Pirwani looks at it and says, no, it just can't work, then
we're there.
I'm prepared to accept that.
I certainly want Dr. Pirwani's thoughts on it, but I've got a concern about the ownership with the hodgepodge arrangement that's going to be there. Who owns what? How are we going to own part of a basement? I don't know. I guess
We've had some unpleasant experiences before with hodgepodge ownership, so I think that's well taken. I think it's something for us to be mindful of.
I guess they would. You hear that as a concern, and
Yes.
so maybe they'll offer to give us the whole basement for what that price is, and
Yes,
that'll
sir.
solve that issue.
We'll come back to you either the 8th or the 15th after discussions with the medical examiner and HDR and the property owner.
Y'all do know how to build walls.
Well, and I think that's things that we Commissioner Johnson's right. We've been arguing for at least 10 years about a joint building that we own or don't own, depending upon whose
we don't know.
interpretation it is. But I would trust that we have attorneys that can write better legalese than they did the last time.
And then what's going to happen to our basement space when that building is blown down or torn down or comes down or whatever?
One thing we talked about was building actual. Richard, come on. One of the scenarios we did talk about is what Commissioner Brooks has suggested. We actually build a new wall down through the basement that tracks the area that you'd have. So you'd have, again, it's like maybe doctors in a condoized area. They actually have a particular physical space that they own the ownership to. So we would create a wall around the basement area. You would own everything on your side of that wall. We could even make it.
And heat this area.
But the air conditioning,
Yeah, the air conditioning would be part of that. Yeah.
would be separate and.
Yeah. Again, if we build that wall, then we have to have the air conditioning go down to the basement level, and as opposed to being for the entire basement level.
I'm not arguing against this location.
No.
We looked at it a long time ago.
That's a realistic.
Out the concerns that I have.
Commissioner Johnson, you've raised a realistic concern, and that's how we would deal with it.
Okay.
We'll move forward.
Any other?
Your Honor, that's all we have at this time. Thank you.
We're adjourned. Everybody have a happy holiday.
Happy. I'll be back up before all day.
Oh, it's